I was never afraid of the dark. Vampires, zombies, the monster under my bed. None of it ever really scared me. I just knew it wasn't real. I was never afraid of the dark. What was there to be scared of? Nothing could happen. It wasn't real. It's not real. And it never will be. I'm not afraid of the dark. My family was never very close. The few moments we would spend together are memories I've cherished from the moment they occurred. Birthdays, celebrations, and best of all, the random days. Those are the days that really made us feel like a family. I know they love them, too. We aren't. We weren't poor. Weren't. Far from it, in fact. Our house had 3 floors. More than you'd expect for a family of 6. The bedrooms were on the 2nd floor, with our parents on the 3rd. The 1st floor was our living room, kitchen, and dining room. The dining room was connected to the living room, separated only by the staircase. The only thing each room had in common was the light. Warm, comforting yellow. All except for the attic. The attic was the only part of the house I avoided. It was old, creaky, and was about as far as possible from a place I'd want to stay. It was lined with boxes on both sides, with a small window on the end opposite the entrance. Our house was big, but we knew it. We recognized it. It was ours. My family was never close. Maybe I should be thankful. That night was as close as we would ever get. The nights before were nothing ordinary, either. First, it was the little things. An already dark room, becoming pitch black in seconds, then going back to normal just as fast. Lights flickering, despite having no problems before. Random gusts of wind, despite no open windows. Everything had an explanation, at least. But about a week before that night, something changed. It wasn't just the lights anymore. Things would happen that we had no way to explain. Bags would go from intact to shreds, their contents spewed out during the night. Dishes would shatter the second you looked away from there. Curtains would always be drawn in empty rooms. And worst of all, the sounds. Distorted, high-pitched ringing would accompany these occurrences, each more frequent than the last. It felt right next to me, yet so far away at the same time. My family was never close. Maybe if we were, we could have avoided this. We all thought we were the crazy ones. No one else said anything about it. Clearly none of this stuff was happening to anyone else. But that was impossible. My sister was the first one to bring it up. It just so happened that all of our schedules lined up so that we could eat together for lunch at 16:30, which was coincidentally the earliest we were all free. Just another one of those random days. Somehow, a conversation about our trip to the beach a few years prior was what reminded her. Have any of you, she paused. Have you guys been noticing some weird things happening recently? Everyone looked at one another. We all had the same thought. We weren't crazy. Like, she continued, my school bag was ripped open when I woke up yesterday. It was perfectly fine the night before. No one admitted to entering her room that night. When I was washing the dishes yesterday, my mother began, the new glass china I bought just last week. The plate broke in my hand while I was scrubbing it. Not a scratch it had before that. Well, I told you before you bought it, my father started, that china was no good. But you didn't listen. You just had to buy it. And now look what it's led to. All that Tim Dash. Oh, you knew bloody well how long I'd been looking for this set. My mother said, clearly a conflict originating. You just want any reason to make me the enemy. This was where I left the room, seemingly unnoticed, as our conversation was cut short by my parents' quarrel, per usual. I checked my phone while walking up the stairs. 17:14. Had it been that long? It couldn't have been more than 20 minutes while we were eating at 16:30. How was it possible that 45 minutes passed? I stopped walking. I knew for sure that I had been looking at my phone for only a couple of seconds. I knew for sure that I had just come from the dining room on the 1st floor. I knew for sure that all I had done while walking was check my phone. So how was it possible that I was on the attic ladder? I heard the same ringing. The sun had only just started setting, yet the inside of the attic was almost pitch black. I got down immediately. I closed the attic's entrance and immediately went down the stairs. My parents had stopped fighting. They had moved into the kitchen while my siblings were in the lounge. Something really weird just happened. I started, "How long were we eating lunch?" My older brother, Arthur, responded, "I'm not sure. Probably like half an hour." I thought that too, but when I went upstairs, I checked the time. It was 17:14. It had been 44 minutes. And not just that, I continued. All I did was check the time. I know I was only walking for a few seconds, yet I was on the attic ladder. And I heard that terrible ringing. My brother replied, "And you just telling us this now?" I didn't understand what he meant. "What are you talking about? It just happened." He looked confused. "Matthew, you were up there for 2 hours." "What?" I checked the time. 19:21. 2 hours had passed since I was on the attic ladder. "Matt, are you okay?" My older sister, Luna, asked. "No, I didn't know how to explain what just happened." "How could I have? I just came down from the attic right now. I wasn't there for 2 hours. Something weird was happening. I knew it. He knew it. My sisters knew it. And Matt, the ringing, my younger sister, Sophia, started. Just as she finished that word, every light in the house went off. The entire house went pitch black. "Matt, where are you?" I hear my brother's voice. "Give me your phone. I'll go and get candles." "I'm right here, Arthur." I held my phone out. Someone grabbed it. The torch immediately turned on, a dim light shining upon the lounge. "Thanks, I'll go and get the candles. You three stick together. Then we'll all go and get Mom and Dad." Arthur finished. "I'll come with you." "It's better to stick together," said Luna, my older sister. Then she turned to us. "You two stay here." They both left upstairs, taking the only source of light with them. The lounge was once again pitch black. A few seconds of silence, a virtual eternity in my mind, before Sophia spoke. "Matt, what were you saying about the ringing?" I turned towards the source of the noise, where I imagined her to be. I started to hear that ringing again. "Well, I dash." "Matt, the ringing," she said again. The ringing got louder. "Sophia, I dash." "Matt, the ringing." The ringing got louder. Her voice wasn't coming from the same place anymore. "Matt, the ringing." Her voice got louder. "Matt, the ringing." The ringing got louder. "Matt, the ringing." Silence. I bolted away from where the sound was, screaming, yelling Arthur's name. I slammed my leg against the side of the stairs, just as I heard their rushed footsteps approaching and the light dimly illuminating the room. "What happened?" Arthur asked. "Arthur, I dash." "Where's Sophia?" Luna cut me off. "Sophia was just dash." I turned around. She wasn't there. No one was there. "Matthew, where's Sophia?" Luna yelled. I tried to explain. Arthur lit a candle and placed it in the center of the lounge, illuminating it with that familiar yellow glow. "Sophia, something happened and this ringing started and I hear her repeating and asking about the ringing and dash." I tried to explain through tears. Arthur turned to us. He was pointing the phone's torch at something on the ground. I couldn't make it out through my blurred vision. "Luna, call Mom and Dad." She started to walk away. "From here." She stopped. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Luna, just call them." She called out for them. No response. She called out again. No response. She called out for them again. At the same time, we all reacted. We all reacted to that same demonic, distorted ringing sound. Arthur reacted immediately. He pointed the torch to the direction of the ringing. The light distorted and flickered for a second, then went back to normal. The ringing stopped. "Arthur," Luna said. "Arthur, what did you see?" Arthur didn't take his eyes off the staircase. He spoke low, almost in a whisper. "Luna, it's just the three of us now." "Arthur, what are you saying?" she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Luna, the other three aren't here anymore." The edge of the candle's light illuminated a trail of red, leading to somewhere outside of view. Luna screamed. Arthur covered her mouth. I kept sobbing. The ringing appeared again. Arthur immediately pointed the light to wherever it came from. The same distortion, the same flickering, and the ringing went away again. If it hadn't been for the sound of Luna's sobs, you'd have thought time was stopped. For a few seconds, nothing happened. We heard glass shatter. The phone in Arthur's hand slammed on the ground. Shards spread everywhere. The inhuman ringing sound came back, more intense. We felt bursts of wind all around us, getting closer and stronger. The ringing was getting louder. Louder, louder. Something screeched, and with it, wind, strong enough to knock all three of us off our feet. The candle went out. The thing screeched as we heard it getting closer. All three of us, still on the ground, we could feel it getting closer, hear that ringing in my ears, feeling like they would explode. I screamed. I heard Luna scream. I shut my eyes tight, despite the house being pitch black. I scrambled around desperately for the matches, somewhere. I heard Luna scream louder, just as I found them, lighting one as quickly as possible. That was the closest I got to seeing what that thing was. Tall, inhumanly tall, about 3 meters. Gray skin with no eyes. Its mouth a dark red, gaping hole longer than my arm. Each of its teeth impossible sharp, dripping with blood. Its arms longer than should have been possible. That's all I saw before it disappeared out of the light, along with the ringing. I lit the candle. Luna was next to me, thankfully unharmed. I could see the bottom of Arthur's legs in the candlelight, the rest of his body unseen. "Luna," I heard Arthur say, just beyond the light's edge. "Arthur, are you okay?" She half screamed, half cried. "Luna, it's just the two of you now." Arthur's body stepped forward into view, his body mangled and bloody, his eyes lifeless, his skin torn apart. He collapsed forward. I screamed, "Luna está silent." The ringing came back. Everything happened at once. I grabbed Luna and the candle and bolted out the front door towards the trees. I ran faster than I've ever run before. I heard that thing screeching louder than before, and parts of the house being blown apart. I kept running, taking Luna with me. I didn't stop to look back until the sunrise. I heard one last screech from that thing, before collapsing, Luna right next to me. I turned around. What was once a 3-story house now looked like the ruins of a cabin, wooden planks blown everywhere, structures broken down, glass shattered. No sign of the corpses of Mom, Dad, Sophia, or Arthur. The only part of the house that remained intact was the attic. I could still see the window from this far away. The same window I had seen every day coming back from school my whole life, staring back at me. But it was morning. We had made it. We made it, Luna. No response. Luna. I looked to my side at Luna. The same Luna I had been taking with me since the house. The same Luna I ran all the way out here with. The same Luna that Arthur spoke to when he died. The same Luna, in the same condition as Arthur, bloody, mangled, bones twisted in the wrong way. Her mouth was ripped out and her eyes was watery. I broke down. Her hand was cold. I hadn't noticed. She didn't scream. I hadn't noticed. I carried her full weight from the house to here. I hadn't noticed. All I had thought about was the fact we'd made it. I didn't realize that I was too slow to run with her. I didn't realize that she was behind me. I didn't realize I barely escaped that thing myself. I didn't realize. It's been 3 years since that night. I've been job hopping, but managed to land a pretty good job with decent pay. I live on the other side of the country now. I don't plan on revisiting that city ever again. I had Luna's body cremated. I told them she died in a bear attack. I brought her with me. Tom, Mom, Dad, and Sophia's bodies were never found. I think about that night every day. What if I had been faster? What if I had paid more attention to Sophia when we were supposed to be together? How was I in the attic for 2 hours? I'm scared of what the answers to those questions might be. I was never afraid of the dark, because it's not real. I'm not afraid of the dark. It's not real. But the light shows me what is. I should stop there, but you want the whole thing, and I need to get it out like a splinter. If I leave parts, it wriggles under the skin and festers. So I'll tell you how the light turned against me after that morning, and why I still sleep with every bulb unscrewed and my phone face down and the smoke detector ripped off because of that god-awful red LED. There are rules, and I learned them once, the hard way. Don't look at the attic window. When you hear the ringing, aim the light at it. 1 second only, then kill the light. If someone repeats your name the same way 3 times, it isn't them. If you lose time and it gives you back minutes, don't spend them inside. That first day after, I walked down the county road with Luna in my arms until a trucker braked hard enough to rattle his trailer. He climbed down, thick mustache, oil on his knuckles, eyes full of questions he couldn't shape into words. Jesus, Kiji, what happened? Bear, I said because my mouth couldn't shape the truth either. He handed me a blanket from behind his seat. Wool, scratchy, smelling like cheap coffee and diesel. I wrapped her, and the blanket came away wet, and he didn't flinch. He made the call. Sheriff. EMTs. The words I remember from the EMT were cold and hours in shock. The words I remember from the sheriff were, "What time was this, and are you sure?" Time turned into a joke I couldn't explain. There was paperwork. So much paper my hands hurt from signing. A woman from the county said I could say wildlife on the forms. I nodded because that word wasn't wrong. Wildlife implies a logic of nature, though, and there was nothing natural in that mouth I saw. I slept 2 nights on my friend Nate's floor and woke both mornings with a ceiling fan still as a dead insect and a rattling in my teeth. Not the fan, the ringing like it had crawled under my molars to live. On the 3rd morning, I sat up too fast and the room lurched sideways. And for a full minute, I was sure I was back under the attic hatch, staring at the rope loop that hangs down like a noose, my hands glued to the ladder, though I didn't remember climbing it. When a minute passed, the loop was the pull chain on Nate's ceiling fan. I left town inside a week. I picked the farthest place on a bus route, packed light, tossed my phone when the battery flashed red because red felt like a siren and a dare. New number, new lease, new job that didn't ask about my gap. I told people I was from back east, which is true from any point on the map. I learned the grocery aisles in dim daylight. I ate canned soup like a raccoon. I kept the blinds closed and taped a towel over the oven light because the little blue glow when you turn the knob looks like nothing until you're listening for everything. Listen, the dark isn't the problem. Dark is clean. Dark is honest. Dark is a quiet room where you can count your breaths and make them line up. Light is a loudmouth. Light shows you what it wants and hides the rest in glare. Light is a trap with teeth. The first time it found me again, I was at work, which is just a word for sitting in a chair and giving pieces of your time to someone else, so they'll give you money to buy soup. I don't want to say the company name. Doesn't matter. The office had those panels in the ceiling, fat white rectangles that hum. At noon, somebody flipped a switch because it was cloudy and the fluorescence woke up crying. That sound, not the hum, the ringing under the hum, as if the room had a tuning fork and a grudge. I stared at the LED on the fire alarm until it bloomed into the attic window. I stood too fast, and the chair rolled and banged into a wall. Someone laughed. Someone else said, "You good?" I lied with a thumbs up and walked to the bathroom and locked a stall and pressed my palms hard over my ears and still heard it, like being underwater while a boat engine churns above you. Light on, light off. I played with the switch until the buzzing thinned out. 1 second on, off. 1 second on, off. Like breathing lessons. When I came back, a guy in a hoodie said, "Dude, great timing. Motion sensor and they're screwed again." I said, "Yeah," and learned that the answer to most things is yeah, if you say it flat enough. I went home and wrote the rules in a notebook that already had my landlord's number and a grocery list scrawled crooked. I wrote them once hard, with the pen I stole from the county office. Don't look at the attic window. When you hear the ringing, aim the light at it. 1 second, then kill it. If someone repeats your name the same way 3 times, it isn't them. If you lose time and it gives you back minutes, don't spend them inside. I taped the page inside a kitchen cabinet and then felt stupid and petty and superstitious. And then the light over the sink flickered and I didn't feel stupid anymore. Nights were easier. I'd sit on the floor with my back against the fridge because the fridge has its own noise and it's regular and dumb and it drowns other noises. I'd count the breaths. 40 in, 40 out. Somewhere around 90, I'd slide sideways. The tile would dig into my shoulder and I'd sleep like a criminal short, thin, waiting for the knock. There were dreams, if you want to call them that. Same hallway, same slope of carpet toward the stairs, same sound in my head like something shaking keys. In a dream, the candle was lit and wouldn't die even when I blew, and the flame leaned toward me like it wanted to taste my teeth. I'd wake with the taste of wax in my mouth. Months went by with me pretending to be a person. You can fake being a person if you nail the small stuff. Ask, how's it going? And keep moving. Nod at dogs. Laugh at the right speed. When they dim the lights at a movie theater, don't flinch. Just cough into your elbow and look at your phone so nobody sees your eyes. When it rains and the street lights birth halos and puddles, look down, not at the halos. Rules. Always rules. Then the letter came, postmarked from back there. There wasn't a return address, and I knew what that meant before I knew. I almost dropped in the kitchen trash because the trash can was open and the mouth of it looked like a way out, but I slit the envelope with my nail instead. Soft paper, cheap glue, ink that bled at the loops. The handwriting was my mother's. She never wrote to me. She called. She wrote lists. She wrote notes on the calendar about dentist appointments and birthdays and Arthur call plumber. She did not write letters. But there it was, my name, the way she wrote it, taller T than H, loop closed at the D like a fish. Inside was a piece of our old dining room curtain, ripped clean, not cut, and tied around a small brass key. From the attic. I knew the weight of that key like I know the weight of my own tongue. There wasn't a note, just the key. I didn't breathe for a count of 20 because breathing felt like it would pull the key's smell deeper into me. Stale cloth, cold metal, the attic dust that coats your throat and turns your voice into something slow. I put the key on the counter and turned all the lights off and sat within the dusk. The key sat there like a nail, and every time a neighbor drove past, their headlights slid over my blinds and made stripes on the key, and I thought about how light is just a moving knife if you look at it right. The ringing started again that night without any light at all, faint at first like tinnitus, then sharpening until the air in my apartment got thin. I folded my hands tight and didn't touch any switches. The dark stayed dark and the sound didn't stop, but it didn't get worse. It paced around me. It wanted me to look. I didn't. When it got quiet again, I took the key and dropped it into the jar where I keep screws and coins that don't fit vending machines, and I buried that jar under a stack of towels like a kid hiding candy. Petty, maybe, but I slept. For hours, no dream. I woke up with my cheek against the fridge and a drool slick on my wrist and felt almost human, which is an insult to humans, but you'll forgive me. I went to work. I came home. I avoided the jar. Days, weeks. People talk about time like a string. For me, it's a puddle with oil on it. Rainbow and thin and flammable. Once a week, I'd go to this laundromat 3 streets over because mine in the complex had a motion sensor in the ceiling, and I didn't like the way the light there came on too fast, like it had been waiting for me specifically. The laundromat was coin only, and half the machines were older than me. That was the point. The fluorescents there took their time to wake up, and when they did, they stayed on. No sudden change, no snap. The owner, a woman with a wheeze and a habit of turning off one of the TV screens when she saw a kid staring too long, kept a radio on the counter playing old soul songs at a volume that tripped my heart into sync. Nobody ever talked much in there. We all pretended the spin cycle took concentration. It was there that I heard it again, not from the lights, but from the phone in my pocket. Phone on vibrate, because of course it is, and it buzzed that particular buzz of an unknown number. I don't pick those up. I don't pick most up, but the display timing lined up with the dryer's beep, and it felt like a dare again. So I walked outside to the smoking corner with a broken bench and answered. Hello, I said like a liar. The ringing cut through the speaker clean. Not a voice, not even static, just that same high edge that digs under the eardrum and drags its nail. Somewhere in it was my name. Not said, suggested, the way a thunderhead suggests rain. I aimed the screen at the alley light for 1 second. I don't know why. It's not like the phone has eyes, but the rule said aim the light when you hear it, and I needed to do something that wasn't panic. 1 second. Off. I cut the call. I threw up in the gutter. When I came back in, the owner had turned the radio up 2 clicks and squinted at the door like something had passed through besides me. Back home, I stood in the doorway and looked at my couch and my sink and the towel stack and the jar under the towels, and I knew the calm I'd been pretending was a blanket pulled off a crime scene. I took the jar out, unscrewed the lid, took the key. I weighed in my palm. I closed my fist around it until the teeth left little commas in my skin. Then I put it on the kitchen table and sat with it in the dark again, because that's what I do when I don't know what to do. I sit and don't touch any switches. Around midnight, I fell asleep sitting up. I woke with my chin on my chest and the key in my lap and the window faint with street glow and a sound like a kettle boiling a room away. It took me 6 long seconds to figure out the sound was my own breath, quick and tiny, and another 3 to realize I wasn't alone in the room. Not a person. Not exactly. The shape at the far wall was darker than the wall. That's the trick of these things. They're not light. There's subtraction. I didn't have a candle. Thank God. I had my phone and the oven light and the bathroom mirror, and none of those were going on. So I said what my mother used to say when the dog had a bad dream and woke the house barking, "Hush." You talk to it like that, and it either hates you enough to leave or loves you enough to crawl closer. It stayed where it was. The ringing lifted a hair like a camera lens breathing. "Are you the thing from my house?" My voice felt like stealing. "Or are you what the light made me see?" Silence, which is an answer when your teeth are shaking this hard. The shape bent at the top, very slight, the way trees bend in a wind they've learned to lean with. That slow, that inevitable. I pictured the mouth because I had seen it. I pictured the length of it, the red inside like a slick handprint that never dries. I pictured the teeth and their hunger, and I didn't want to give them anything, not even my picture of them. So I made my mind blank. I breathed, in out, 40 each. When I got to 39, the shape unbent, and the room got a fraction lighter in the way rooms get lighter when a cloud moves, but you can't see the sun. Then as soon as the fraction shifted, the shape was gone. I sat there shaking and told the key out loud that I would burn it in the morning, and then laughed at myself because brass doesn't burn. I wrapped it in the curtain strip and put it back in the jar and put the jar in the freezer because that's what my grandmother used to do with batteries when the remote died. She said cold wakes dead things up. She was wrong about remotes. We'll leave the other part alone. The morning was an afternoon before I could move. I called in sick, and the part of me that still cares about bills twinged, and I ignored it. The freezer had iced the jar cloudy, and when I pried the lid it squealed a little, and the noise made me want to kick the fridge over. I took the jar outside. 3rd floor walk up. No elevator. I stood at the dumpster and thought about throwing the jar as far as I could, and then thought about the sound of glass breaking and winced and set the jar on the concrete instead. I carried the key in my pocket to the bus stop because I didn't trust leaving it anywhere and I didn't trust touching it, and there's no in-between with some things. I rode the bus to the edge of town and got off where the fields start and where I knew there's a sinkhole they've fenced but not filled because it's county and county is slow if you don't call 3 times. I climbed the fence. I threw the key in. I listened. Nothing. No metal on rock. No ring. It vanished the way a coin vanishes in a magic trick, and you clap because the trick is clean and you don't want to know where it went. My pocket felt empty and then light and then wrong. The way your hand feels wrong when you take a ring off after years. I went home and sat on the floor and fell asleep with my cheek on the tile again and woke to the cat in the hallway yowling at somebody else's door and felt fine. Good, even. The kind of good that makes you light the oven for eggs without thinking about the tiny blue spark at the start. The burner clicked. The spark came. Blue. Clean. The ringing slammed against my face like a hand. I froze, breath caught halfway. The blue became white hot at the edge, a filament scream, and I turned the knob off and the click stopped and the ringing fell back down the stairs of my skull. I ate cereal. That night, I dreamed of the attic, not the mouth. The window. The glass was black from outside because it was night in the dream, but from inside the glass had a skin, and whenever I moved, the skin moved a half second out of rhythm, like I was watching myself through lag. Behind that skin, something breathed in slow, deep sips. It didn't fog the glass. It warmed it without moisture. Heat without breath. I woke up sweating in a cold room and went straight to the cabinet. I read the rules again, even though I knew them. I said them out loud, slow. Don't look. Aim and kill. 3 times isn't them. Outside for extra time. Then I broke the second rule because I needed to know, and knowing is how you die, and I'm not special. I turned my phone face up. I turned on the flashlight. 1 second. Off. The beam ate the dark and spit it out, and in that 1 second something in the corner bent, patient as a tree. I slept with the light on after that, which you already know is the dumbest thing I could have done, but sometimes you grip the thing that hurts you because it's shaped like a handle. I woke with my eyes on fire and my tongue cracked and my hands empty and no memory of the dream and the ringing quiet, which is worse than loud because quiet is a loaded gun on a table. You sit there and tell yourself it isn't going to go off, and then it does. Work kept being work. I kept being the man who nods. There was a woman in payroll who asked me once, "Do you always squint when you laugh?" I said, "Do I?" And she said, "It's cute." And I said, "Huh." And she said, "Okay, moody," and walked away, and I stayed moody because the lights in payroll are brighter and I didn't want her to see me counting the flickers between sentences. The call I shouldn't have answered came 2 weeks later. Same unknown number, same alignment with something in the room. A microwave ding this time. I picked up because I was cooking and roasted broccoli smells like scorched hair if you leave it, and the smell was taking me somewhere I'd already been too many times. "Hello," I said, already sorry. "Matthew," it said, exactly the way Sophia said in the lounge. The same cadence. The same stress on the first syllable, like she was pinching my name with 2 fingers and checking if it was right. "Matthew," it said again, and the third repetition lined up in my ear with my memory, like when 2 presentations in school use the same template and the transitions are identical and you hate them both for it. I hung up. I turned the oven off. I opened the window, and even though the light from the street came in with a breeze, the room felt safer for those 2 minutes with the air moving. I closed the window and wished there were a way to close the light. I don't know why I did it, beyond the fact that grief is a compass that points toward the wrong north. I dialed back. Voicemail. I didn't leave one. An hour later, call again. Same number. I silenced it. The ringing came through anyway, not from the phone, from the ceiling light. I stared at the switch, and the switch stared back with its 2 screws like eyes. Aim and kill. I tapped the switch up. 1 second. Down. In that 1 second, the shadow in the corner bent. It waited. It learned me. I didn't sleep. Morning was gray, and the gray felt like reprieve, and it wasn't. I got a text from a number I didn't recognize, a picture of an attic window with a reflection in it of a person holding a phone, and the reflection looked exactly like me except for the mouth, which was longer, as if the glass had stretched it. The caption was 3 words, "Come see me." I didn't. Of course I didn't. I went to work and sat in my chair and gave another day to someone else and pretended not to watch the little red light on the fire alarm blinking its pattern. 2 seconds dark, 1 second bright, a metronome for panic. That night, I dreamed in a loop. Me on the attic ladder, me on the lounge floor, me in the trees, me at the ruin in daylight, me with Luna on the ground, my hands in her hair, the hair stiff with dry blood like little flags that won't lower in the wind. Me hearing the last screech, me seeing the attic window still there, me walking across 3 years like a tightrope driver with no wheel, me lifting a candle that isn't there. Over and over. When I finally broke the loop, I woke with a sentence in my mouth that didn't fit my voice. It isn't the dark. I said it again to make it mine. It isn't the dark. And somewhere behind a refrigerator's dumb hum, the ringing answered, not like a phone, like a tuning fork kissed and kissed again. The next day, I quit my job. I did it badly. I told my manager, "Hey, I can't do this anymore." And he said, "Do what?" And I said, "Lights." And he said, "Okay, buddy." And I said, "Yeah," and left my badge in a drawer, and the drawer creaked like a neck. You want the ugly part? Fine. I drank for 2 weeks and slept for 1 of them. The only light I allowed was from the street through the blinds, because it's impersonal. It doesn't see you. It just exists. I didn't answer calls or texts or the door. I forgot I had neighbors until one banged on the wall at 3 a.m. and yelled, "Turn the TV down," and I yelled, "I don't own a TV," and he yelled, "Then what is that beeping?" And I realized the smoke detector on the hall had a dying battery and was chirping every minute, a tiny note of light you can hear. And I yanked the thing down and ripped the battery and threw both in the sink and turned the faucet and watched the water drown the chirp. You can't drown a sound like that. It lives in the absence. The jar in the freezer haunted me even empty. I should have thrown the jar into the sinkhole too. I wrapped it in a towel and put it back under the sink and shut the cabinet, and the shut felt like a prayer. When the water drained, I could hear my own heartbeat again, and it was too fast and too loud, and all I could think was how my heart made light for doctors and how I never wanted to be in a room where anyone pointed light inside me, ever again. The call that cut through all of that came at noon, sunlight fat and clear. It shouldn't have been scary. Noon is fake safety. The number was different, local, the same area code. A dispatcher voice. Flat, efficient. "Is this Matthew?" My mouth said yes because my mouth betrays me. "We found a body," she said, and my mouth opened and forgot what to be. "We have reason to believe," she continued. "We have reason." And she broke because a machine somewhere in her room beeped, a flat line that wasn't flat. It was a ring, and my breath scissored in my chest. "What?" I said, not because I wanted her to finish, but because the word bought me a second. "We have reason to believe it's the remains of your father," she said, and the noon went out of the room like a switch. A hiker reported skeletal. "Look, sir, can you come in for identification?" Her voice stretched thinner than it began and snapped back. In the snap, I heard 3 syllables that didn't belong to her. "Matthew," they said. Exactly the way. I didn't go. I couldn't go. If I had gone, maybe the story would have ended in someone else's light, under fluorescent tubes that flatten every face into a mask. Instead, I turned off my phone and put it in the freezer with the empty jar, because I'm an idiot and because cold feels like a blockade. It rang anyway. Through the door, through the wall, through my teeth, through the freezer, through my thumb, which was pressed against the freezer door seam because I didn't trust the cold enough to do anything but be cold. I pressed harder, and the ringing rose to meet me. And for a second, the door felt like the attic ladder, and my thumb felt like it had splinters from wood that wasn't there. I took my hand away. The sound stepped back. "You win," I said to nobody. "You win. I hear you." And the quiet afterward wasn't relief. It was agreement. That night, for the first time, I lit a candle. Not because I wanted to see, because I wanted to test the thing that took my family and ask it a question I didn't have words for. The wick sucked the match, and the flame made that little sound it makes, that hungry first breath. I held my hands out to the warmth and then away because warmth now is teeth. "Arthur," I said into the candle because I couldn't say Dad or Mom or Sophia first. "Arthur." I felt stupid and 12. "If you can hear me, if you're in here, knock." Nothing. Of course nothing. If you're not, don't. Still nothing, because candles don't conjure brothers. The ring under the silence, though, it shifted. Higher, close to the pitch when he said, "It's just the two of you now." I blew the candle out and the smoke coiled like a rope, and for a second, I saw the attic pull chain hanging over my hand, and the instinct to grab it and look was a muscle twitch. I didn't grab. I stood there with my hand halfway up like a bad picture of prayer and breathed the smoke in and thought, "I loved you," and thought, "I'm sorry I was slow," and thought, "I don't want to see you like you were at the end." The smoke scraped my throat. The apartment was dark again, clean and honest. I went to bed on the floor because beds are arenas and I didn't have the stamina. I woke before dawn with my mouth dry and the ringing gone and a certainty in my bones like cold. If I kept pretending light could be used like a tool, I'd see my family exactly as they were the last time, and the seeing would take whatever was left of me on the good side of awake. So I stopped testing. I obeyed my own rules like they were law. Weeks stretched. Work didn't call because I quit. The landlord knocked, and I slid the rent under the door, and he grunted and left. The world moved without me, which is its talent, the thing that keeps it going. I sat through afternoons and learned to tell time by the angle of the light under the blinds without looking at it. Little victories. Then the city blacked out. Transformer fire, somebody said the next day. Some idiot with a drone, somebody else said. Doesn't matter. Night came and the windows were dark, and I wanted to be grateful with all my skin. The sky was a smudge of stars like spilled salt, and for the first time since I ran from the house, I opened the blinds. The cool night breathed in. Street empty and soft and stupid. My chest loosened. I ate cereal straight from the box, and the stale sweetness made my mouth water, and I laughed quiet. A cracked sound but real. Somewhere down the block, a generator coughed itself awake. The little red LED on the generator blinked like a heartbeat in the alley. A new light in a world of none. It blinked slow, patient. I watched it beat and knew it wasn't a heartbeat at all. It was a blinking eye that had found me anyway. I closed the blinds. I turned my face to the wall. I listened to the generator cough and cough like a smoker dying for attention. I thought about the attic window, still standing when the whole house wasn't. I thought about the way light survives the things that give it shape. I thought about Luna's hand in mine, cold, and the way I should have known by the weight alone. I thought about the tiny hesitation before Arthur said the last thing he ever said, like he wanted to say something else and chose mercy, because that's who he was. I slept through the blackout and into a morning where every apartment around me came back to life with a pop and a cheer. My own place stayed quiet because the bulbs were unscrewed and the power to my oven was off at the breaker and the smoke detector was still in the sink, dead as a tooth. I got up slow and ate the end of the cereal and sat with my back to the fridge, and for a second that felt like a trick. I believed I could keep this up. That if I just avoided the right switches, the right angles, the right reflections, I could outpractice a monster and live long enough to forget what it's like to see teeth that don't belong in a human mouth. Then, stupid and human and hungry for the lie that life can become normal again, I opened the cabinet to make coffee. I'd forgotten about the tape page, the rules. The tape had loosened, and the page slid off and fluttered to the counter, and the edge of it caught the morning light through the blinds like a fin breaking water. For a second, the ink gleamed. For a second, the words became mirrors. In that second, I saw the attic window inside them, and inside the window, for the first time, I saw not me, not a stretched mouth or a bent shadow. I saw my mother, not mangled, not dead. Her hand lifted like she was about to touch the glass, and then she stopped and shook her head, exactly the way she did when I asked for money for a skateboard. My heart tripped a step. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it. The ringing started low and hard and climbed, and this is the part where I should tell you I turned away, but I didn't because I am a dumb, loving animal. I leaned over the counter, face almost in the cabinet, and tried to read her lips in a reflection that wasn't glass, and the light touched the page, and the white of it became glare, and the shape in the glare bent, and my name came back to me, 3 parts, the last one swallowing the first 2 like a snake. I turned away. I turned the page over and pressed my hand on the blank back like a bandage. I slid down the cabinet to the floor, and my knees cracked, and I laughed because the sound they made had no ring in it. Just bones. Plain. Mine. I left the page face down. I didn't look again. I didn't make the coffee. I ate toast dry. I lay on the floor and stared at the blank ceiling and counted slow. I kept breathing. The ringing eased a little. Enough. I swallowed hard, and the swallow popped my ears, and the room grew bigger by an inch. Don't look. Aim and kill. 3 times isn't them. Outside for extra time. The rules held. They had to, because that's all I had left that I trusted more than the light. I know you want the ending, and I swear I'll give it, but you need to understand the rhythm first, the push and pull, the way the light calls like an X with good timing. It doesn't force. It invites. It offers you a glimpse under the sheet and counts on you to lift it all the way. That's the game. It wins when you look long enough to believe what you see. It keeps you when you believe yourself into its shape. If I told you the whole thing in one go, you'd nod and say, creepy, and turn a lamp on. Don't. The lamp is a mouth. The bulb is a tooth. The switch is a tongue. Leave it. Let me get there at my speed, the only speed that kept me alive the night everything else in my house died. Because I didn't go back. I won't go back. The past came here instead. It brought a key. It brought a curtain. It brought calls. It brought the generator's blink. It brought a noon that fell off the table when a dispatcher said a name that was mine and a body that might be my father's. It brought my mother's face into a piece of notebook paper like a ghost who learned graphic design. It brought my own voice back at me through ventilation and glass and painted drywall. It brought everything, and the only thing I've brought back is this. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of the light that shows me what is. I didn't wait for the sun. I didn't wait for permission or for the part of my brain that knows how to be careful. I packed a backpack with stupid things, protein bars, water, 2 rolls of duct tape, a hammer, the curtain strip from the jar I'd kept cold to pretend it was safe. I left the phone in the freezer because I was done being led by a blinking pixel. I left a note on my counter that just said, "Key, window rules." If anyone ever found it, I wanted them to know I try to stay inside the lines. I caught a bus going east. Nobody rides those if they can help it. You get a certain type on that line. Men who slept standing, women who watch their reflections in the black window and blink like they're crushing down tears they don't have time to cry. Teenagers giving each other looks that are all teeth and no skin. The bus lights try to be gentle. I kept my eyes on the floor. The floor had gum black as coins. A kid across from me played a game on his phone with the brightness cranked, and I wanted to tell him to dim it. But I chewed my tongue and stared at the aisle line and recited the rules in my head, each one a knot and a rope I could crawl along. Past midnight, the bus emptied. Past 1, it filled again with kitchen people and hospital people and a man with hands like he'd been washing them in paint thinner for 30 years. The driver hit a pothole and the dome light over me stuttered. Not off, just a hitch, a heartbeat pause, and the sound it made in my head wasn't a sound any machinery ever made. High, precise, intent. I reached up like an idiot to touch the fixture, then yanked my hand back. Aiming light is one thing. Touching it is a whole different kind of stupid. The highway stretched, then bent, then straightened again like someone ironing a ribbon they hate. The night pulled thin. Dawn started to guess at itself behind the low hills. I got off before the terminal, 3 stops early. Nobody watched me go. The cold got in the creases of my jacket and wrote its name there. I walked the county road because that's the artery I know, the one that feeds the place I promised I'd never step near again. The shoulder was crushed bottle and the smell of last week's rain. Somewhere beyond the ditch, a dog barked at a shape that might have been me, might have been something else borrowing my stride. The old house wasn't first. The sheriff's office was. Brick too red. I stood outside looking at the glass door, at my reflection cut into rectangles by daylight I didn't trust yet. Inside, the waiting room had the exact light I expected, flat, fluorescent, too much. A woman at the desk had an expression like she'd been pulling teeth from paper for 10 hours. When she looked up, her face sharpened into something kind but efficient. The badge on her chest said Martinez. The key in my pocket got heavier at the sight of her, like it wanted to drop me to the floor by the weight alone. "Matthew?" she asked, like it was a test I might fail. "Yeah." My voice sounded like it came through drywall. "Thanks for coming in." She stood, gestured me through a door that buzzed and clicked. "We can do this as quick as you want," she said, walking. "It's mostly procedural. The remains are minimal." She let the word dry in the air between us. "Who called me?" I asked. "Was that you?" She shook her head. "We contract dispatch to the county. They handed us the file." She said it like someone reciting, but underneath was this little edge of embarrassment, like she knew the call didn't go how calls should. "There's a recording if you want to." "No." We walked a hall with bulletin boards and flyers for pancake breakfasts. When we turned a corner, a motion sensor light jumped to life ahead of us. And even though I was expecting it, the speed of it pissed me off. It's the speed that gets you, not the light. The speed. The way it makes you feel like it was waiting. "I'm sorry," Martinez said, glancing at the light. We've been trying to slow those down. Budget. That little embarrassed edge again. It's fine, I lied. I followed her past a room with a coffee maker and a post-it that said, "Don't touch the timer," in someone's all caps. The timer light was red. It blinked steady as a metronome. My left, I started to chirp. The room they brought me to wasn't the room. No stainless table. No sheet. A screen, a chair, a man with a scalp like a boiled egg who said his name fast and looked away. The image was a field. A shoe. A smear. "We only need you to confirm," the Eggman said. And Martinez said, quiet, "You can say no." I can't. The word surprised me by being true. I looked. It was nothing and everything. The shoe was wrong. My father never wore that kind. The smear was right. The ring in my head climbed half a step and then down again like it was stretching before it committed. "I can't say yes," I said. "I can't say it's him." "You don't have to." Martinez didn't write anything. She didn't touch my shoulder. "Just let the room sit with the sound the screen made. The hiss screens make when they pretend they're off. We'll handle the rest," she said, which is the kind of sentence that means we will put this on a shelf nobody looks at until it falls. She walked me back out. At the door, she hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "You don't have to answer." I hated that line, but I said, "Yeah." "The dispatcher who called you. Did she?" Martinez looked at the ceiling, exhaled like she was trying to scoop something off her tongue. "Did she say your name more than once?" "The recording." She looked at me, finally, like that had hurt. "It's corrupted. 3 times isn't them." "I got the idea," I said. "Thank you." She nodded like we'd traded something heavier than sentences. "If you go out to the property," she added, "don't go alone." A useless thing to say to someone who is already alone on purpose. "I won't." I lied again and left. The road from there to the ruins lives in me like a scar. The ditch is deeper. The trees either smaller or taller, depending on the ones that lived. Grass had grown over the place where the mailbox used to stick up like a begging hand. The driveway wasn't a driveway anymore. It was 2 lines through green, and the green came up around my ankles when I stepped in, and it was cold and wet and clung with tiny seeds designed to hitch a ride to hell. The house, what was left, sat exactly wrong on the earth. Sagged in the middle, pouted like a torn lip. Wind had bent the thinner wood back. Rain had erased the little differences between floor and wall. None of it mattered because the attic window stood like a tooth in all that gum. Clean, smooth, too bright for a piece of glass with cloud behind it. I didn't get closer than I had to. I stood at the fence line we never had and imagined it there. I could smell mold and mouse piss and the sweet rot of something small that crawled under and didn't find its way out. My mouth remembered dust. My hands remembered splinters. My feet remembered the soft sag at the top of the stairs where the carpet always gave a little like you were stepping on a belly. The ring came very soft, like someone humming a hymn 2 rooms away. The sun was behind the clouds, but light doesn't need sun to be itself. It uses reflections. It uses you. I breathed. I loosened my jaw because clenching always made it worse. I didn't look at the window. I looked at the ground and at the sick little plant by my shoe and at a dent in the earth I swear was made by the phone Arthur dropped. Imagining is a blade. You have to hold it by the dull end. Getting inside meant crossing open space. Open space is where light does its best shoving. I went around the long way, through what used to be a hedgerow, bent low, shoulders tucked like I could make a smaller target. There was no door. The hole where the door had been breathed through me. Inside smelled like the attic, which made no sense, but scent has more power than geography. My eyes adjusted slow. The light was a film over everything, thin, tacky, like the residue left by tape after you pull it off too fast. The ladder should have been gone. The hatch shouldn't exist, but I could see where it was like a bruise under skin. I felt the key in my pocket go hot, then cold, as if a hand had been on it and then pulled away. I didn't touch it. I didn't touch anything. I stood under the place where the pendant would hang and looked at nothing for a count of 10 and said, "No," because sometimes that works on dogs and very small boys with cookies. "No," I said again when the ringing climbed. I know what you are. The air moved. Not a wind. A pressure change. The sensation you get before a broken fluorescent tube goes and someone gets cut. The instinct to grab the chain, and look, my hand went up a half-inch and I wrestled it down. I know what you are, I said, and I mean this. I didn't. I still don't. But you say the words that make the shape change, even when they don't fit your mouth. On my third, I know, a weight hit the joist above, something stepping where nothing should. A shuffle, patient. The last time I'd heard a step like that, it was Arthur coming back toward the candlelight with his voice, trying to soften the worst sentence in the world. I took the strip of curtain from my pack. Soft, patterned with the dumb little flowers my mother loved because she said the yellow made dingy rooms feel like daytime. I wrapped the strip around my fist like a boxer's hand wrap. Not tight, just enough to make my knuckles into something not skin, and I took the hammer in my left and felt the way the weight pulled my elbow like it wanted to swing itself. Okay, I told whatever had decided to hover above me. If this is what you want. I bent and picked up a sliver of the old glass from the floor. A useless gesture. A souvenir. A blade if you need one. My plan, if you can call it that, was stupid but mine. The window was the only piece that kept its shape. Break the shape. Don't look at it while you do. Cover the light with the thing it used to be framed by. Hit once, and never for more than a second look at what the light shows you as you do it. My legs didn't want to climb. I wanted to lie down on the broken floor and press my face to the wood and wait for it to all stop. That's a kind of wanting that tastes like being a kid under a heavy blanket. I swallowed hard and stepped onto the rung anyway. The ladder groaned. Something above me adjusted its weight, and dust sifted down and kissed my eyelashes. I climbed 3 rungs. 4. 5. My back made noises I didn't know it could make. I stopped under the hatch where the chain should be. Even without looking, I could feel it. The rope arc, the little circle at the end where our greasy hands had darkened wood. I counted slow. Matthew, the house said. No, not the house. The word came from the light. It was the way empty church windows say your name when you walk past them on a weekday. It was my mother's mouth in the notebook reflection, only this time I heard it. The first time tastes like copper. The second time tastes like sugar. The third time would have killed me if I let it all the way in. I leaned back, one hand on a rung, the other raised, curtain wrap, hammer ready. Not you, I said, to my mother who wasn't. Not you. The ring was a pitch only dogs respect. The thing above me bent. I could feel the temperature change. A fridge door open in summer. I pushed the hatch up with a wrapped hand and did not look. Do you know how hard that is? To open a space above your face and keep your eyes down like you're ashamed of something you didn't do? I shoved. The hatch kissed the roof and dropped back onto its latch with a hard wooden thunk, like a throat clearing. It didn't want to open. You don't need me to look? I said, because sometimes you tell someone what they don't need and they believe you just to spite you. There was a moment, half a heartbeat, where everything quieted like a song in a bar between tracks, and if I'd been smart, I would have slammed the hatch shut and run until my legs blistered and then kept going on the blisters. Instead, I took that half beat and let it become my second. I heaved. The hatch gave. The attic breathed down hot onto my scalp. I kept my eyes on the rung I'd wrapped my hand around. My knuckles were white inside yellow flowered cloth. I climbed up until my shoulders broke the plane of the floor above. I could feel the rectangle of the window on my face like a slap without skin. It wasn't heat. It was attention. It looked at me. That's the worst kind of light, the kind that wants you back. I moved like a bad thief. Slow, deliberate. My left hand found the edge of crate I broke in half at 12 because I wanted to see what was inside, and it was only holiday napkins. My knee bumped the rolled rug my father never laid down. The ring carved at my ear like a child with a safety scissors carving paper into static. Don't look, don't look, don't. Matthew, my mother said from the window, from the glass, from the strip of air between what's out there and what's in here, and God help me, I tilted my face just enough to see her hand. It was exactly the hand I remember, a small pale thumb with a nail flat across. The ring she never took off. The ring with the dent where she once smacked it against the edge of the sink. I saw that dent. I saw the vein at her wrist under skin like paper. I saw the half-inch of freckle form. I saw the edge of her sleeve, and it wasn't the sweater she died in because I never saw what she died in. It was the blue cardigan she wore when she took us to the library on Saturdays. I saw that much and no more because I threw the curtain strip at the window like a net. It hit, stuck on the edges of the old paint like a flag half caught. The light through it turned yellow, that nice house yellow that made me feel like we'd eaten lunches at a normal time. The ringing shifted down, curious. I took that single second and slammed the hammer dead center, so hard the bones in my arm lit up. Sound. Real sound for once. Glass like rain in church, and a throat breaking in the middle of a word. The curtain ripped down with it, and for a heartbeat the attic held its breath, and the pressure that had been levering my heart one notch at a time eased. Outside light went honest. Plain gray. The peace in the air that had been watching me withdrew like someone taking their hand off a mirror. Then it screamed. Downstairs, the old beams hit notes which shouldn't hit. The floor under my knee bucked. The desk from my sister's room. A thing I hadn't remembered until it knocked my hip, fibbed, skittered, and slid. The scream had more inside it the longer it went. The pouring of sand, the boiling of water, the exact tone a fluorescent tube catches just before someone taps it and it shuts up. I didn't look at the hole where the window had been. I didn't look at the shape bending toward me with its mouth a corridor, longer, the red inside like fresh meat. I dropped through the hatch. The ladder kicked sideways under my weight, and the side rail split with a sound like a laugh. I fell wrong and rolled wrong, and the rib. I landed on saying a note I didn't know a body could sing. The ring chased me down the notch of the stairwell, jabbing, more angry now than patient. Good. Be mad. Be anything but soft. I ran. I hit the open space and water in the yard and grass that made my legs itch with seeds that were suddenly teeth because my brain is generous with metaphors when I least want them. Behind me, the attic exhaled light. A whole lungful of years. It poured out the hole like a held breath, and the edges shattered into little gleams that pinned themselves to dew on tall grass. The field looked like 1,000 eyes crying all at once. I didn't look back. Not until the trees reached out with their dumb, clean arms and the tilting shape of morning put my own shadow in front of me. When I finally turned, there wasn't much to see that hadn't been there when I arrived. The attic window was gone. Where it had been, there was just a rectangle of weather, honest gray, the color of a bruise when it's about to leave. The ringing lifted and then dropped like a coin in a deep well. It didn't settle. It kept falling. I walked until I couldn't, then sat until my legs remembered they belonged to me, then stood like a bad puppet. I ate a protein bar without tasting it. I drank slow. The world made ordinary noises. A bird lunging sound into the air like it was testing how far it could throw it. A truck miles off, a dog that hadn't gotten tired yet. The field in front of the old house stopped crying one dew-eye at a time. By noon, I could stand by the road and pass for someone you drive by and forget. A farmer in a hat that had once been white slowed his truck and leaned across the seat. "You all right there, bud?" The question rode out on the smell of diesel and old apple cores. "Yeah," I said. "Family property. Needed to check on something." He nodded like we were men who understood what checking on something meant. "Storms will do a number," he offered, which is the kind of sentence that makes everything simple for a mercy-length second. I nodded back. He said, "Hop in. You look like you're walking off a bad dream." I didn't hop in. I didn't want to bring any more of that light into someone else's cab. He tipped his hat, a thing I thought only existed in movies, and rumbled on. I walked back to town. The sun climbed and didn't touch my eyes. I kept my head down like a penitent. The sheriff's office had the same red bricks, the same glass that cut your reflection into little pieces. Inside, Martinez wasn't at her desk. The woman who has had the expression of someone being paid to be blamed. "Help you. Just tell Sergeant Martinez I came by. Tell her it's done." The words felt dumb as soon as I said them. "Don't put that in a report," I added, which is also dumb. But when I turned to go, she said, "You're Matthew," like a decision, and then, "She left this for you." An envelope with my name. My name in a hand that wasn't my mother's. Inside, a card with nothing on it but the sheriff's business line and "Call when the lights change." I didn't. I left town the way I came. Only I walked the first 6 miles, and every mile felt like taking off a sweater that had started to strangle me. The bus driver didn't look at me. The bus lights didn't flicker. A kid fell asleep with his forehead on the window, and the oil from his skin made a ghost there. Night came while I was still moving, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel like the dark was a thing I needed to earn. Back home, my apartment smelled like damp sugar and the stale shape of me. I closed the door and leaned my back against it and counted to 40 because that's what I do when I don't know what else to do. The freezer hummed. The jar was cold on the shelf. The phone was a black rectangle with a dead eye. I didn't take it out. I let hibernate. I sat on the floor. I said, "Okay," to the empty air until the word lost its vowels. The week after that was quiet, like a person who has just gotten away with something. The light from the blinds didn't push. The oven sparked blue and stayed blue and didn't throw any knives at me. I still avoided the mirror after dark. I still kept my lamps without bulbs. But the room didn't lean toward any corner when I breathed. It let me be. I slept in 2-hour bites and sometimes 3. I dreamed of nothing obvious. A sink that wouldn't drain. A river I couldn't cross. Me in a store aisle. Hand on a bulb I didn't put in my cart. Normal nightmares. Then I got dumb again. It's not that I want to test anything. It's that a person can only be careful at one speed for so many days before the speed feels like a prison. I flipped the switch in the bathroom to brush my teeth because the light in there is bare and ugly, and I thought, if a light could be honest, it's this one. It came on. It buzzed like an insect hitting a screen. I brushed, spit, brushed again because my mouth felt like metal, spit again. I stared at myself, which I don't do. My face had edges I didn't recognize. My eyes had a glassiness I've seen in other men who talk to themselves at bus stops. Behind me, in the mirror, the hallway was dark and good. No shops, no vending, but the bulb above my head pulsed 1, 2, 1, 2, like someone learning to speak a language by imitating the sound and not the words. The rings skated along my gums. I turned the light off. I brushed by feel. I put the toothbrush down wrong and knocked the cup into the sink, and the clack was so normal I wanted to cry. I went to the window and lifted a corner of the blind with my nail, just enough to see the street. Red taillights, a cat crossing like a slur, a store sign beyond the corner, its neon open flipping to closed as I watched. The O and open blinked. The ring pinged that same note from the last 2 years, pure and clear as a glass rim played by a wet finger. I let the blind fall. I said no, to the room, to the part of me that wanted to look again. I put my palms on the wall and took slow breaths like a diver sunk to the bottom of a pool longer than is wise. The walls held. The fridge hummed. The hum sounded like hum. I didn't call Martinez. 2 nights later, I woke up with my cheek cold on the floor and the smell of rain coming through the crack at the bottom of my door. It hadn't rained. There was no wet on the sidewalk the next morning. The smell stayed in my nose, that attic sweet mildew, and in it was that tiny top note, a hot penny. When I turned my head toward the sink, I saw the smoke detector lying there, its little eye unlit. When I looked back, the eye was lit red. That shouldn't have been possible. There was no battery inside it. I had pulled the wires, but the red blinked anyway, and every time it blinked, the ring kissed the back of my teeth like it wanted to live there. I picked it up slow. It was cold as a rock, then warm as a small live thing. I didn't throw it. I didn't smash it. I don't know why. Instead, I put it back on the ceiling with the screws in my pocket, my hands moving like they belonged to someone practical, somebody's father. The blink calmed, 2 seconds off, 1 on, like a heartbeat again. It was wrong, and it was right, and I watched it and waited for the ring to climb. It never did. It sat in the corner of my head, content. The next morning, when I opened the cabinet, the rules page had turned back to the right side without me touching it. The tape had given up. It lay on the counter like a snake that had shed its skin. The rules looked like a mirror again, the ink catching whatever light managed to sneak around my reflexes. Under the last one, outside for extra time, another line, let's show you what is. I didn't write that. I don't write in my sleep. I stood there with my finger under the word show like I might underline it, and I stared until my eyes watered, and I read it again and thought about all the things I had not let myself look at, because looking feeds the thing that wants you. The way Arthur's voice had felt when he lied to ease my sister's last seconds. The way Luna's hand had cooled while I held it and refused to notice. The way my mother's mouth had shaped my name in a reflection that was not a window and had still felt like one. Let it show you what is. So I did. Stupid. Human. Dog to a whistle. I unscrewed the bulb in the kitchen and set it on the counter. I sat on the floor under the cabinets like I always do when I need the fridge hum to sit on my chest. I waited. The ring didn't come. It made me feel like a teenager after a tantrum. Don't ignore me. Don't you dare. I sat longer. The page on the counter caught the light from the hallway the way a puddle catches blue. It shivered. That's what it looked like the ink shook with a thing inside it that wanted out. I reached up and flipped the bathroom switch. 1 second. Off. The little blast of light slid over the page, and in it, the attic window opened wrong. Not where it belonged, but inside the word light, the letters making a frame. All that fit was the corner of the window and a triangle of sky and a sliver of someone's shoulder in that blue cardigan. Not enough to pull me in. Enough to make my heart wobble and sit down. Okay, I said again, both to the cleverness of the thing that had been teaching me for years and to my own stubborn gut. Here's how we'll do this. 1 second at a time. That's what I did. For weeks. If you want the truth, months, but they felt like weeks because time, for me, is a puddle and a trick. Flip. 1 second. Off. Let it show me what it wants, but no more. A flash of my father's hand pushing a lawnmower that didn't work. The strap of Sophia's backpack before the rip. The glint off the china my mother bought. Perfect before it broke. Pieces. Not enough to drown in. Enough to map a shape around the thing that killed us without looking at the thing itself. Sometimes I saw nothing in the flash but the page itself and my own hand, and that was a nicer kind of mercy than I deserve. Sometimes the page stayed blank, and the window was in the sink water or the black of my turned-off phone or the microwave door when it reflected the little red "I'm here" light. I didn't smash anything. I didn't aim to destroy. I aimed to know, piece by piece, and to stop before knowing flipped into believing. A night in early spring, the power flickered because the city still has a sense of humor. The world went dark, then brighter, then dark, then brighter, and in that strobe I saw every other heartbeat. My family standing exactly where they should have been. Mother at the sink, father in the doorway, Arthur on the bottom step, Luna at the couch, Sophia perched on the arm like she wasn't supposed to, all of them as if I'd never watched the light turn them into evidence in air. Alternating frames. Alive, then gone. Alive, then gone. The ring in my head, for the first and only time, sang a note that wasn't pain. It was harmony. It was the hum a fridge makes when it's doing what it was built to do. I screamed. I didn't mean to. It came up out of the stretch of me that still lives on that lounge floor. I screamed a word that wasn't a word. I threw the breaker myself to drop my place into the dark, and I sat in it, clawing at my scalp, asking please to nothing and don't you dare to the same nothing. The smoke detector blinked with a little reserve charge I hadn't known it had. Every blink was a tiny eye closing. When I turned the power back on, the page was on the floor, face down, tape stuck to my hands like cobweb. I left it. I ate cereal with my fingers. I called Martinez. She picked up on the second ring and didn't say hello. Tell me, she said, as if we'd been in the middle of a conversation. Her voice was softer than at the desk. Not kinder, just realer, like she'd washed a layer of office off. You keep a list of strange calls? I asked. We keep lists of everything nobody believes, she said. Dispatch pushed yours to us because the recording was wrong. Blinking, I said, thinking of the generator, and repeating, And I didn't want to say the other thing. I didn't want to say that the light had learned my name better than people in rooms with clipboards ever did. And what? It's not the dark, I said. She was quiet a beat that felt like a choice. Come down, she said. Or don't. If you do, come after sunset. Our lights are terrible during the day. It was either a joke or a confession. We'll sit in the dark, she added, as if that made it cool. I can't. Not yet. My teeth hurt. Do you have anyone? I couldn't say like me. Anyone else who says things about ringing that should not be there? Yes, she said simply. What happened to them? Sometimes we stop hearing from them, she said. Sometimes they send postcards with pictures of lighthouses and write, looks nice, right? And then never a second card. I could hear paper on her desk. The way she shuffled it made the sound of a room trying to breathe. Sometimes they bring us pieces of things. Glass, batteries, a switch from an old lamp. They put them on my desk like a cat bringing a mouse. She exhaled. Sometimes it's enough to share the weight. I went quiet because weight sharing felt like a promise I might accidentally keep, and I wasn't sure I could. Call when the lights change, she said again, and hung up like someone walking backward out of a room to keep eyes on a thing that doesn't deserve eyes. A week later, the lights changed. It wasn't a flicker. It wasn't a look at me. It was the quietest switch I've ever felt, the way a basement gets when a refrigerator in the next house overturns off. The world sighed. The ring stopped. Not quieted. Stopped. The apartment felt like a church after the last hymn, when the sound expands until you wonder if it will push the walls down. I walked to the window. I didn't lift the blind. I pressed my palm flat on the slat like I could feel the weather through plastic. I could. It was cool. Clean. The kind of clean that never lasts. I called Martinez. It's different, I said. Ow! The word wasn't a question. It was a tool. The ring, I said. It's gone. That doesn't mean it's finished. I know, she said. Stay off digital for a day. That startled me into a laugh I didn't recognize. Most of our weird calls, she said, the ones that aren't teenagers, they spike when there's some new antenna, some new sign downtown that blinks. When a tower goes down, the calls go weird in a different way. Stay analog. Analog meant candles or nothing. And I've had enough of candles to last 700 lifetimes. I did nothing. I sat in the dark when night came, and the dark felt like a hand on my head, not in a petting way, in a keep your skull together way. I slept on the floor and woke with drool on my knuckles and no sound under my teeth but blood. The second night, the ring came back like a coin someone flicked down a metal railing far away. It never got close. The third, closer. The fourth night, I realized what I'd done breaking that window. I'd broken the easiest place for it to look at me. It wasn't trapped there anymore. It wasn't trapped anywhere. It would take more work now. For both of us. So I keep my rules, and I keep my seconds. I keep my lights off. I keep my mouth from saying my name out loud like an invitation. I keep the page with let us show you what IS face down under a bowl. That's the real rule. Not the words. The wait. Keep weight on the part that wants a peek. Sometimes I get a call. Unknown number. I don't pick up. After it stops, I stand very still and listen, and in the pipes, or the fridge, or the streetlight across the way, I hear breathing that isn't mine. I say no, like a parent to a child with a cookie a minute before dinner. I flip the bathroom switch up and down quick and give it its second, and the light shows me exactly what I can afford. Luna's shoe. Arthur's right wrist. My father's shoulders from behind, the way I know him best in my memory. My mother's laugh not in sound, but in the shape it makes around a room. Pieces. I let them be pieces. I don't force them into a picture. That's the trap. That's how it gets you. It waits for you to glue it all together and put yourself in the middle. Last week, a generator went up on our block because our landlord is proud of his ability to keep rent checks coming even in winter. The red LED blinked like an artery. I watched it across 2 different midnights, and the ring sat quiet beside it, respectful, in a way that made me hate it more. It's not always a bully. Sometimes it's a gentleman. That's worse. That's so much worse. You want to know if my family is in there. I don't know. If I look long enough for an answer, I'm afraid the answer will be no, and the knowing will hollow me. Or the answer will be yes, and the knowing will invite me in. Both are the same size hole in me. The last thing that matters, I still see the windows sometimes. Not in my apartment, not anymore. On billboards, when the ad goes white for a second before the next loop. In airplane bathrooms, when the occupied light is stuck and you knock and nobody answers. In a mirror beneath a fluorescent tube that buzzes at exactly the pitch of an old violin. It's always there, waiting the way a lake waits for a rock to break it. I don't throw the rock. I was never afraid of the dark. I meant that then, and I mean it now. The dark is no more a person than a chair. The dark is where my brother kept me from seeing him die. The dark is where my sister said my name like a question I can't answer without feeding a thing that hasn't stopped learning me. The dark is where I can hold the edges of who I am without them gleaming into a shape that would hurt me to admit. Because it's not the night that chewed through my house. It's not the unseen that took my mother's hands from cooking and turned them into a page trying to seduce me. It's not the absence that made my mouth learn how to make a sound I hope nobody else has to learn. It's the light that shows me what is. If you're listening, I'm not giving you rules because I think rules can save you. I'm giving them to you because rules give you a way to move. They give your hands something to do when your head is listing. Don't look at the attic window, wherever it finds you. When you hear the ringing, touch the switch, give it 1 second, and kill it. If someone repeats your name the same way 3 times, it isn't them. If you lose time and it returns, spend it far from anything that glows. And if the thing you love most appears in a reflection, it is a window. Do not go through. I'm going to sleep now. Not because I'm done. This never finishes, not the way a story wants to, but because my cheek has learned the pattern in the tile, and my shoulder has a groove in the cabinet that is mine, and the hum of the fridge is the closest thing to a lullaby I've got. I'll wake when a neighbor turns on a bathroom light and the walls cough the way walls do, and I'll count my breaths and I won't look. I'll keep counting, and if a note starts under my teeth, I'll tap the switch and give it its second. And if it shows me my mother's hand, I'll say her name once and let the rest of it ride by without feeding it my eyes. I'm not afraid of the dark. I won't be. The dark is where I can pretend for exactly 9 beats that my house never learned to scream, and my sister never said my name like hunger, and my brother never tried to shield me with a lie. 9 beats. 10 when I'm lucky. That's enough to sleep between. But the light shows me what is.